literally all of the game I have ever known have been tied together of the same much like.
Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co.
And I'm Tommy.
And today we're reviewing DC Comics Deck Builder. This is a game that's been out since 2012 from Cryptosaic. They currently have the 10th anniversary edition over on Kickstarter with like all this extra stuff and expansion boxes and Injustice and Rival expansions and all these different things. Today we're reviewing specifically the DC Comics Deck Builder base game. We've also played through the Teen Titans standalone base game as well. This is a standalone game, some differences and changes, but we'll be talking about our experience with these. We are not going to be talking about all the content out there. There's a lot of stuff. There's Rivals, there's other stuff, there's expansion packs, there's a lot of things out there for this game. We're just talking about the base game and briefly Teen Titans as well. To that end, this game at its core is a deck building experience. The general idea is you are trying to build a deck in order to get as many points as possible.
And also the villains literally have abilities that literally try defeating you.
The villains do have abilities that try hurting you. And how do you get points in this game, Tavi?
By your cards.
By your cards. All the cards you get in this game are going to give you points, with the villain specifically.
Like power.
With the villain specifically giving you, no, the power is not points. The villain specifically will be giving you more points. So whenever you take down a villain, you'll be getting usually larger numbers, somewhere between 4 and 8 points, versus when you gather cards from the basic row, you'll be getting somewhere between 1 and 3 points. Sometimes they're variable.
And how you see these, that's how power gives you that points to get cards.
The general turn structure, like Tavi said, is you're going to have your hand of cards. You're going to go out and play your hand of cards. So you have your 5 cards. You'll add up the amount of power generated.
That's 3 power.
That is 3 power because we have 3.
So he could get that.
He can get a kick. Basically, your starting hand of cards is going to have vulnerabilities and punches. Vulnerabilities give you nothing. Punches give you 1 power each. So my starting hand of 3 punches is going to give me 3 power, which, like Tavi said, I can use to buy this kick over here, which is a standardly available card that'll help improve my deck because this is a 2 power card.
And weakness, some cards tell you to get a weakness.
Weaknesses will clog your deck as well as giving you negative points. Past that, there's the card row over here. The card row is going to give you a bunch of different options, which I've specifically laid down, 1 of each type. We have small villains over here, villains you can take out that will be then added to your deck. You'll also have the Batcave, which are locations that once you get a location, it has an ongoing keyword, which means it stays in play unless something removes it. You have equipment, which interacts with various game elements, but equipment's going to go ahead and give you...
I have 7 power, so I could get that.
He had 7 power. Did you cheat? Because you have way more cards than you're supposed to.
I know that. I don't know why.
Yes, Tavi just drew his entire deck instead of his starting hand, but Tavi has 7 power, so he's going to go ahead and grab a hero, which is Wonder Woman, adding Wonder Woman to his discard pile, and then I'll go ahead and buy Heat Vision, which is a superpower card. So these are the 5 card types you have: superpowers, heroes, equipment, locations, and villains. For the most part, all that really matters is the card text has abilities on it, and you're going to utilize those abilities. You're going to spend power, you're going to look at the bottom right of each card, you're going to add those cards to your discard pile, and then when your deck runs out of cards, you're going to shuffle it up, use those new cards, and continue playing. Along the way, when you defeat villains, either the regular villains or the super villain stack over here, which is one of the end game triggers, the game generally ends either when the deck runs out of cards, which rarely happens, or when you go through all villains, which is more commonly how it ends, and then when that runs out, you'll trigger endgame. But these super villains and the regular villains all get added to your deck. So while the super villains will have abilities on them, that when you reveal a new super villain, you're going to trigger their first appearance ability, which generally involves making you discard cards, get rid of cards, add cards to the card row.
And some cards literally say something that you have to get the power.
Yeah, a lot of times the cards will have conditional effects on them. This card will give you +2 power.
And when you get a location, when you play it, it literally stays there for the whole game.
The locations literally stay in play as you go through it. In fact, speaking of which, that's a good time to talk about Teen Titans. Teen Titans is basically giving you the exact same gameplay. It's literally giving you the exact same gameplay as the base game. That's making a very loud noise. And then in Teen Titans, one of the things it heavily focuses on, though, is it really leans heavily into that ongoing keyword. Ongoing is a keyword you're going to find on locations that lets those stay in play, whereas in Teen Titans, it slaps it all over the cards, and a lot of the cards interact with ongoing things. Get power based on how many ongoing cards you have. Discard ongoing cards to have different effects. You want me to take my turn, don't you? Oh, you think we're playing this game, don't you? Let's go ahead. I'll go ahead and play 4 punches over here. That's going to get me a 4-cost card, which means I get the cape and the cowl. Boom. Excellent.
And then it's
okay.
Now it's
I'm going to go ahead and shuffle my deck now that we have that done. Apparently we're playing this game at the same time.
4. So I can get...
Yeah, we have a high card cost in that center row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and discard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll go ahead. Along the way, one thing I haven't shown you, the last thing I haven't shown you, is the fact that you also have superheroes. Tavi, can you pass me that box over there? The box, just reach that box. Yep. Because something I completely forgot to set up in this setup over here is the fact that you also have a variety of superheroes that you can have in the game. If I can get these out. There we go. There's our superheroes. Superhero cards are going to be your special ability that you have, the way you're different than other players. You have Batman over here, who gives you one power. Who gives you one power for each equipment card you play. You have the Flash, who goes first, and the first time you draw a card, you draw an additional card. The first time you draw an extra card.
You're Dr. Fate.
Apparently, I'm Dr. Fate today, who, when I play 2 cards with consecutive costs during your turn, I get +1 power. When you play 3 cards with a consecutive cost, draw a card. So Dr. Fate rewards you for having different card costs in your deck. You have Superman over here, who's going to reward you for 1 power for each different superpower you play during your turn. So all these superheroes are giving you a defined characteristic of how or why you're different, what you can do better than the other players, and that's basically at a high level DC Comics deck builder. There's not a lot else going on. It's a deck building experience. You draw 5 cards.
And also some cards literally let you destroy cards on top of your deck.
Some cards do let you weed and destroy and trash your deck, which is very helpful. Well,
because then you could destroy stuff that don't help you.
Yes, you can get rid of those vulnerabilities, or I can convince Tavi to also get rid of punches because they're not as good as other cards. Better to have a nice, solid, streamlined deck than a bunch of 1 power cards.
And also, sometimes stuff literally, like, some villains do not help you with power. Some villains do.
Yeah, sometimes cards have text effects that give you other interesting ways to dive through. Grab 2 heroes from your discard pile. You know, the next time you play equipment cards, do this or that. A whole bunch of options there.
See, this one gives you power and this one doesn't.
Now I want to see if he's right about that. Give me a second here. We have, yes, you're right, Lex Luthor. Draw 3 cards. Lex Luthor allows you to draw 3 cards, making it incredible, but also it's not straight power. And
a case you know this movie good, The Joker.
The Joker. So, that is DC deck building game. Tavi, do you want to tell people what you think about it?
It is the most entire game of the life.
It's the most what game?
The most entire game of my life.
The most entire game? I don't know what you're saying.
The most favorite game of my life.
It's the most favorite game of your life? Whoa.
Basically.
You like this more than every other game?
Well, compared to all the games we have ever played and all the games, like...
What do you like more, this or Potion Explosion?
Okay, every game I have ever played literally ties up to the same.
What do you like more, this or Planet Unknown?
But it's the same. I said literally all of the game I have ever known have been tied together of the same much like.
So Tavi likes games, which is going to make it very, very helpful in this review. Please don't play with that. But effectively, so DC.Comics deck builder, Tavi clearly is a fan, as you may have noticed. This is a very...
And also, if you do not have as much power to buy anything, then you could just skip your turn.
That is true, and that does happen, especially if your opening hand has 3 invulnerabilities and there's nothing you can buy.
And if you, let's say you had 8 points, those 7 and no 1s, you could only waste 7 and have the extras for nothing.
Yeah, the extra does not carry over to next turn. Although if you have ongoing cards, those carry over to next turn. Anyways, so the way this game basically is, it's a standardized deck builder. I think if you're looking for a fun deck builder that captures the DC theme, this does a good job. Although captures the DC theme is said with a heavy grain of salt because of the fact that none of it makes any sense. You have superheroes fighting one another, which granted happens in comics, but it feels very random in the way it's done over here. You defeat villains and then they get added to your deck.
Now I'm taking my turn.
Basically everything you see is a card, and so everything you do, whether it's equipment, a superhero, a hero, a superpower, a location, a villain, they're all just cards that go in your deck. So the theme is very, very pasted on, but if you do want to implement and interact with various...
I have 5 power. What should I get?
Utility belt.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you do want a game that captures the DC theme in some very, very loose general sense, if you want to play as Superman and in some way have abilities around a very accessible, streamlined deck building game, DC Comics will deliver on that. It captures all that. I think it's a solid gateway deck building experience. I also think that at least taking into account the base games, both regular over here as well as Teen Titans, not taking into account any expansion content, I also think this is one that gets very old very quickly. This is one of those games where you're doing the obvious move 9 times out of 10. 9 times out of 10, you can only afford certain cards. You're going to buy the cards that clearly work better for you. There's not a lot of choice, not a lot of agency.
And also, add something. So far, you have not seen anything that has cost 1. Some stuff will actually cost 1.
That's true. But yeah,
some villains also.
I would say 9 out of every 10 turns feels fairly obvious in what you're doing, versus that 1 out of every 10 10th turn you might actually feel, ooh, I have to choose between 2 cards, or I have to choose between taking down a supervillain or buying those 2 cards that help for my deck. So once in a while there's a choice. Most of the time it's very procedural. You're doing a very basic thing. Don't get me wrong, I have fun playing this. I have fun playing the base game. I had fun playing Teen Titans. I am sort of curious about gathering more content for the game, but I'm also wary because I don't know if adding a whole bunch of extra stuff is going to make me feel more inclined towards this game. I think it's just going to be more stuff for a game that doesn't necessarily need more stuff. The core strength of what this is doing is being an accessible deck builder. There's a ton of content out there.
Oh my God, person!
Dr. Fate! Dr. Fate! I have a Dr. Fate card. The core aspect of this game is why it's appealing is how accessible it is while it has that theme kind of layered into it, but I think it's very, very gateway in what it's doing. Again, base games only. What I will say in regards to the Teen Titans expansion is if you have to pick one of these 2 sets up, I think it depends on what you're looking for. I think Teen Titans with all the ongoing effects actually provides a slightly more interesting experience in the way you can build out your deck and cards, but I think it does so while adding a decent amount of maintenance and card counting and being on top of extra elements without necessarily adding a strategic degree respective to the amount of extra legwork it adds. I like it. I think I like it more, although I like the heroes more in regular DC Comics deck building because I don't really care as much about the Teen Titans stuff. But yeah, I think this is a solid deck builder, an accessible deck builder, but one that is very, very surface level in what it's delivering, at least accounting for the base games.
As you have known, you have not seen anything that is 5 power. Here's a 5 power.
That's a 5 power card right there. And that's basically it. If you're looking for other deck builders, my favorite go-to deck builder, not necessarily my favorite, my go-to deck building recommendation that I tend to give people is Dominion. I think Dominion is a solid game. If you're looking for more deck building superhero stuff, Marvel Legendary, I think gives you a little bit more gameplay depth, a little less accessibility. Marvel Legendary is another solid choice worth checking out. As far as final thoughts and rating, which I'm doing completely out of order here because I'm a little befuddled and distracted by my son who's interrupting me every 3.5 seconds. But if you're looking for final...
that is true, I am.
As far as final thoughts and rating on this one, I give this a 3 out of 5. I think it's fun, I think it's enjoyable, but it's also very procedural and basic, and not a lot of depth to the experience.
And as you know, Two-Face literally got a toxic to get Two-Face.
He did indeed. And that's basically it. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. This has been Tavi, and this is DC Comics Deck Builder. Have a good one.
I'm making piles.